Hello, welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I'm going to be doing an early autumn Uniqlo try on. Before I get started, just a reminder that everything will always be linked down below in the description box, including any additional items used for styling in the cutaways, and just reiterating any size information as well. So sizes that I'm wearing, whether you should size up or size down, all of that information always down below in the description box. Right, now the boring bit's out of the way, let's get stuck straight in with item number one. And this is a recurring style which Uniqlo tend to bring out year after year, and it's one piece from their 100% cashmere range. So here I have got the cardigan, and this is actually one of the styles because they've got polo necks, crew necks, V-necks. This year I believe there's also a button-up vest or a button-up cardigan, but that is sleeveless. I think that's actually part of the Uniqlo C collection because there's also a couple of cashmere pieces within that collection, as well as just what I'm going to call their core collection. And I wanted to share the cardigan with you guys today because it's a piece that I've never tried, and so therefore that was kind of appropriate for today's video. But also this is a prime example of some of the new seasonal colours that they've brought out this year. So online this colour is described as red, which I think is completely not accurate at all. I'd call it kind of like a wine colour perhaps. It's definitely got more of a purpley undertone. And this is actually a huge colour trend for this season. That said, I think all of these rich sort of burgundies, wines, oxbloods, whether it's a more purpley tinge or a reddy tinge, all of those colours are always seasonally appropriate for both the autumn and the winter season. So with colour trends like this, I think it is still a very good purchase in order to be able to wear that for years to come. Now, I do have one tip with regards to size, and that would be to size up, and this goes for their whole cashmere range. So I always buy my cashmere pieces in a size large because I prefer that slightly more slouchy fit. I do not like tight fitting cashmere. I also like to be able to add layers underneath, especially when it comes to the winter season, and I want to build up those layers to keep warm. So I would advise sizing up. Now these, like a lot of what Uniqlo has to offer, make excellent wardrobe staples. These are what I tend to swap into my outfits around this time of year when it is getting a little bit cooler outside, instead of the basics that I've been wearing throughout spring and summer. So t-shirts, vests, usually made out of cotton. These are just a more substantial option for the cooler weather. Right, next up is the extra fine merino wool collection. And in the same way that I've done with the cashmere, I've kind of lumped together this. It's not one specific piece because there are a few different styles within the extra fine merino wool collection. So here at the front, I've got one of their newer pieces for this season. I haven't seen this in previous autumn winter seasons, so I think it might be a new style for this year. And this is the half button up, I suppose, polo jumper, polo shirt, whatever we want to call it. And this comes in a few different colours. I've also got the button up cardigan as well, which is a sort of thinner and I'm going to say cooler alternative to the cashmere. So these might be more appropriate for around this early autumn time, and then you can kind of move on to the cashmere as we get into full-on really crispy autumn, and certainly as we move into winter as well. So these are a really good, I suppose, transitional wardrobe basic. So again, in a similar way to the cashmere pieces, these are just really good for being a more sort of up-to-date autumnal or early autumn basic for layering. So under blazers, jackets, they're also really good as smarter pieces of workwear as well, especially things like this because you've got a little collar on there. So if you did want something as an alternative to a shirt, you've got collared pieces like this, which can be dressed up smarter, you know, by tucking them or wearing them sort of bloused over a pair of smarter work trousers or a skirt or whatever it may be. But they work equally as well for more of like your day-to-day outfit. So again, you know, cardigan, you could tuck that into a pair of jeans, wear it with some boots, add a coat or a light jacket over the top. Just very good basic layering pieces. Now, as the name would suggest, these are made from 100% merino wool. However, they are machine washable. So if you're someone that's looking for, especially if you're using these pieces for work, you just want practicality in there, these are an excellent option for you. Okay, next up is the lambswool crew neck. Now there are some other styles within the lambswool collection. I believe there's a cardigan. There's also some ribbed styles as well. This one in particular is from the Comptoir de Cotonnier collection, which is one of several different designer collaborations that they have at Uniqlo. These are all collections that I would highly recommend keeping an eye on as and when they are released, because they do have some really strong pieces within those collections. Now, this is actually a style that I've never tried before, but it is a style that has been brought out before. And before I get stuck in, I will just flag the point that there's actually some really negative reviews about this online. So that just brings me to the point of reiterating how important it is to check the customer reviews. And not only for elements like size and fit, but also for quality issues, because there were a lot of customers that have bought this item in previous seasons that have now gone and bought it this season, and they've noticed a change in the quality. So I find those reviews really helpful when it comes to little things like that. I, on the other hand, have never bought this in a previous season, so my outlook on it might be slightly different to those who have. First and foremost, the feel of this, it is 100% lamb's wool. It is not as soft as cashmere. I think it's kind of an unfair comparison to make to anything compared to cashmere, because cashmere does feel incredibly soft. This does not feel like that. If you have a little bit of an intolerance to wool, this might not be the best option for you, because it does feel much coarser on the skin, and dare I say there could be a slight element of irritation or itch. So this may be something that if you do want the robustness of a lamb's wool, then perhaps you might want to add a layer underneath, whether it be a long sleeve basic, a short sleeve basic, wherever you feel you might get those irritations. Now, despite the bad reviews, I'm actually going to say that I think this is quite good value for money, given that it is 100% natural fibres. But again, I'm saying that based as someone who has never purchased this item before, so therefore I have not seen the drop in quality. But I do think this is a really good little layering piece. Again, just a very basic piece of knitwear, and for something that is 100% wool, I do think that it is good value for money. Okay, my next item is from the J.W. Anderson collection, or from the most recent collection, and this is the boxy shirt. This is 60% cotton and 40% viscose. So it actually has a really nice, soft, I don't know, it doesn't quite feel as stiff and starchy as cotton, like cotton poplin, almost like school shirt fabric, very basic fabric can feel. This feels a little bit thicker, and it just feels more premium and a lot nicer. And I think that's something to expect when you look at the designer collaborations that Uniqlo have. More often than not, they tend to have slightly nicer fabrics, with the exception of Uniqlo's core 100% cashmere range, but they do tend to have slightly more elevated fabrics and more favourable fabric compositions in comparison to some of their core range. So this shirt comes in 2 plain colours, or 2 block colours, and 3 striped colours, and as you will see, it is a shorter design. So this is not designed to tuck into trousers. I think if you have a slightly shorter torso, if perhaps you're petite, it would be doable with a high-waisted pair of trousers. For me, I'm quite tall, so to tuck this in would be utterly pointless, because the minute I would stretch up or move or sit down, it would just untuck and it would become such a faff. So I think this is actually designed to be one of those shirts that actually sit just on the top of your trousers. So that's something to bear in mind, because if you were doing certain movements, I feel like there would be potentially some midriff on show. So just something to bear in mind with this one. But again, I do think this is a very solid wardrobe staple that could be worn for years and years and years. And it feels nice, nice quality, nice design, if the design is your cup of tea. Right, up next, I've got a black double-breasted blazer. Again, another solid wardrobe staple. Now this one is from their main line or their core collection, so no designer sort of collaboration involved here, but there is a very similar style, maybe just a little bit more elevated, that's come out as part of their latest Uniqlo C collection. Now there is a little bit of a price difference, the Uniqlo C collection being a little bit more expensive, but I will link that one down below in the description box as well, just in case you wanted to check that out. So this blazer comes in 3 colours, and I think it's equally as useful as part of a workwear wardrobe as it is as part of your just day-to-day wardrobe. For anyone that's followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I am very big on my tailoring, and I don't necessarily have a workwear wardrobe. I'm just day-to-day, all day, every day. So for me, tailoring blazers, they are an absolute must-have for sort of elevating my usually casual outfits. Now, I usually prefer a single-breasted blazer, but when I tried this one on, I'm going to hold my hands up and say I did really like the style of this. I like the sleeve length, I like the overall length, I like the way that it hangs, I like the way that it looks when it's buttoned up, and I rarely button up a blazer, but I did for the sake of trying on, and I liked it. So there's a lot to like about this blazer, but for me, sometimes I can be a little bit of a fabric snob. Not always, because I'm not vehemently against polyester, although it is not preferred or favourable. So when it comes to fabric composition, this is 64% polyester, which is recycled. It is 28% viscose and then 8% elastane. Now, I would be quite easy to be very negative about that fabric composition because it wouldn't be my preferred. Also, the lining is 100% polyester, which I have a really big pet peeve about, because polyester at the end of the day is plastic, and so therefore it's going to make you sweat. So this wouldn't necessarily, despite the fact that the style, it's got so many ticks in all of these different boxes with regards to style and the overall look of the blazer, but the fabric would probably be the one con for me personally. That said, there may be people that find polyester actually has a benefit for them. It's more robust, certainly for work if you don't want to be a bit precious about, you know, wearing 100% wool blazer that you've spent a lot of money on. You just want something that looks good but is just a bit more practical, and that's why a lot of workwear includes polyester and also schoolwear, and we know why, because it is robust and it's durable. So there are those pros that do come with any sort of fabric that includes polyester. And for anyone that is perhaps a regular Uniqlo shopper, the fabric composition of this blazer will not be a surprise to you. There are people that go to Uniqlo because those fabric compositions do actually work for them. But at the same time, as I have already demonstrated, there are also a really good range of pieces that can be found that are 100% natural fibres. 100% cashmere, 100% merino wool, 100% lamb's wool, and then you've got blends like this which are viscose, again another natural fibre, and cotton. Okay, moving on now, and I think this is actually the only piece that I've got from the new Uniqlo C collection, and it is the long coat. Now, I've got 3 pieces of outerwear in this video. I've obviously already done the blazer, and I've kind of had the same, I don't want to call it an issue, but the same sort of thought process as I have with every single piece of this outerwear, and that is that I have loved, slightly reluctantly, loved the look of the item on, but the fabric composition has let me down. I say let me down, that's maybe not necessarily accurate because I know with Uniqlo exactly what to expect, and it is always that they are going to have an element of polyester. So with this coat in particular, it is 80% poly, 10% wool, and then 10% viscose. So we do have those slightly softer fabrics built in there, and we do have that bit of wool. And do you know what? You can feel the wool in there. You can also feel the viscose, which gives it slightly slinkier and softer feel in there as well. Now inside, this does also have 100% polyester lining, but it is only partially lined. This may be a pro to you, it may be a con to you, but bearing in mind this is early autumn. So I don't know if necessarily this coat might be something that I would wear in January or February, but it would certainly be something that I would wear from the time of September all the way up to December, depending on the temperatures. Now, when it comes to style, as I mentioned earlier on, I can't fault it. It's actually a really nice coat. I love this sort of, it's a relaxed fit, but it's not oversized. And one thing that I was actually really impressed by, because over the last few years, there's been this real emphasis on oversized outerwear and having sort of coats and jackets that almost look very masculine, and therefore they have quite exaggerated shoulders. I love the shoulders on this, and I know that's such a niche point to make, but they're women's shoulders, and I myself have loved the oversized, more masculine fit, but I have now very much settled into preferring something that is not quite as exaggerated on the shoulders. So the shoulders have no shoulder pads in there, they have no padding, they are cut to fit a woman's shoulders. And just the overall fit of the coat is really, really beautiful. It's literally just that fabric composition that for me would probably lead me to not buy the coat. But again, if you are looking for something more robust, something that's going to really last, then this is a good option. And now onto my final piece of outerwear, and it is the wool blend short jacket. So this is, as you can see, very much like a peacoat kind of style. We've got that double-breasted style in there. It is not, however, lined. You'll probably see this in the cutaways, but I'm just going to undo these buttons. So it's completely unlined and therefore would make quite a nice jacket for the now period. And throughout, I would say autumn would be certainly a season when you could get away with this jacket, depending on where you live in the world. Here, this is definitely autumn appropriate. Now this is 80% polyester, 20% wool. You can again feel the wool in there, but you can also feel the poly and you can hear it. Again though, for the same reason as I love these two pieces, this is a really nice jacket and it's actually dark navy. So I was in store picking this up for this try on video and I thought it was black. It's a very, very dark navy. It's not until you get into natural light that you can see it does have navy. I do really like the style of the jacket. I think it's beautiful. It's just for me that fabric, because I think, and if I go back to, I did an outerwear video, I think it was coats, wool coats under, I'm tempted to say 250 or 300 pounds. And I posted that video last year in winter, or it could have been autumn time. And I think that that just sort of demonstrates the level of outerwear and the sort of fabrics that you can get for various different price points on the high street, because it was dedicated to high street. And I just think you could pay a little bit extra in comparison to this, and you could get something with a much higher wool content. So that's kind of what I've always got in the back of my mind when I'm looking at Uniqlo pieces. Could I pay a little bit more and get something just a little bit more premium? And the answer to that is yes. But again, if you are not against polyester, perhaps you are pro polyester, this is a really nice jacket. Right, now I am moving on to my trouser category. And I went a little bit rogue and I picked up these because I have seen in the comments recently that I've had a few people asking about corduroy in general, and also corduroy trousers. These, I'm going to be the first to admit, would never be something that I would pick up to buy for my wardrobe. I just don't think they're my style, and admittedly I found these really difficult to style. I think corduroy for me has, I don't know, a few different undertones to it. The first thing I think of is a very sort of retro, especially when it comes in these brown and mustardy colours. And these trousers, just FYI, come in 6 different colours. Some of them very, very autumnal colours as well. So really nice and seasonally appropriate. And I suppose corduroy is quite a seasonally appropriate fabric. But for me, it just feels very retro, and it also feels like old manish. And I have a few jackets with corduroy trim. I live in the countryside, so naturally a lot of wax jackets have corduroy on the trim or little elbow patches, and that kind of thing doesn't bother me. But when it comes to full corduroy outerwear, like a blazer for example, or trousers, they have me a bit flummoxed. But in terms of fabric composition, these are 98% cotton and 2% elastane. And I must admit that when I put them on and I sort of moved around a bit, I could definitely feel that element of stretch in there. So for comfort, they get a tick. For styling, however, I'm still a little bit on the fence. Okay, next up is the curve trousers. These are quite a recent release and I wanted to feature these because, and I've actually got a pair on, but these are the Uniqlo jersey barrel leg trousers, which I have been featuring for at least the last couple of months. I absolutely love them. And so therefore I thought these would be a good option to share with you guys. They're a slightly different fit. They're called curve, they're not called barrel. They don't have that exaggerated sort of bendy leg shape to them. They do feel a little bit more just sort of a relaxed fit, slightly more voluminous and tapered down towards the ankles. So if you're not a fan of that exaggerated barrel leg shape, but maybe you want to move away from a slim or a skinny or a wide leg trouser, you want to try something a little bit different, these could be a good option to just have a little try on. Now there are also a denim or jeans version of these as well, which featured in my recent barrel leg jeans try on / comparison video. So I will link that down below in the description box along with a timestamp to those specific Uniqlo jeans for anyone that is interested. Now, when it comes to fabric composition of these, they are 100% cotton, and admittedly, they do kind of feel a bit like jeans, but they don't have your standard button and fly detail. They do have more of a trouser fixture, which I suppose is why they've called them trousers. And finally, I have, well, these are two separate items, but I've kind of lumped them together as one to form a tracksuit because that's what it is. So this is from the Dry Sweat range, and this is one of their newest tracksuits for this season. Some really nice colours that this comes in. 4 different colours, if memory serves me correctly. I've got the navy here, but there's a really beautiful sort of dark camely brown colour. Very autumnal. If you are looking for something for either autumnal activewear, leisure wear, or just lounge wear for sitting watching telly in the house or working from home comfortably, whatever it may be, this is a very, very good set. Right, let's start off with the joggers or the bottoms first of all. These are also a curve shape. So in the same way as the corduroy curve and just the curved trousers and the curved jeans, these also have that slightly more volumized look towards the middle of the leg, and then they taper in, not to skinny, but they just taper slightly towards the ankles. Now these do not, and this goes for both the hoodie and the joggers, they don't have any kind of fleecy lining inside, which is why I do think these do make good activewear, because they are from the Dry Sweat range, which is made from 80% polyester, 15% viscose, and 5% elastane. And when it comes to activewear, that fabric composition is A, pretty much the norm, and B is what provides the sweat wicking abilities. They are machine washable up to 40 degrees, so you don't have to be precious with them. You can literally just bung them in the wash. And one other pro of this fabric is that because there's viscose and poly in there, they are very resistant to creasing. And that is another pro that goes for the outerwear as well, especially if you are commuting. It is a fabric that does rarely crease. So if you're sitting down or driving on public transport, whatever it may be, it's the kind of fabric that you can do that in and get up and you will still be crease free. And then we've got the hoodie, which I think is a really nice length. It's not too long. It doesn't need to be bloused over, creating extra bulk around the mid area. It just sits nicely on top of the trousers. And I think together it just makes a really nice coordinating set. Right, there we go. Those were a few new pieces from Uniqlo's early autumn drop. If you've got a favourite, as usual, let me know down in the comments below. And one other reminder as well, just to say that I am also on Instagram and on LTK, and you can download an app for LTK if you so choose. And there I'm creating lots of other content as well, which coordinates well with the content that I create here on YouTube. So if you're enjoying it, go and give me a follow over on those platforms. But for now, that is it from me. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.